Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel. Excited to have you here. And today I'll be sharing a process of how I created my layout for the July Scrap the Boys challenge blog. And the challenge was to use a color scheme all in the pinks, teals, and purples. So that's what I'll be doing here. So to start the layout, I grabbed my metal circular dies and three of the papers to create backgrounds. So those are going to be more or less centered on the white cardstock and will be part of my background. I'm also going to layer my photo there, and I did decide later on to add some smaller circles, so kind of to fill out the page. So you can kind of play around and see what looks better based on the papers you have, the photo that you have, before you adhere anything. And before we do that, I'm actually gonna do some mixed media on the white cardstock, so that will kind of really help it pop off the page. So here I added another circle, and I think I end up adding one more later on. But before you take the circles off, you want to mark kind of the placement or general idea of where you want to put your cluster, so that when you're applying the mixed media, you know where your edges are, and kind of how the placement is going to look like. So pull out inks that match or coordinate with your pattern papers. I used colors that I have from Distress Oxides. You can really use any inks that you have. You can use watercolors, really whatever you prefer. So I started with the Kitsch Flamingo, and that one, I wanted it to kind of have the colors alternating so that one circle, has multiple colors around it, just a little bit of a contrast. You can also do tone on tone. So I've done that in other layouts. This time just wanted to mix it up. So based on the placement, I kind of played around with it again just to make sure I knew what colors went where, and I had that off to the side so that I can reference that as I was applying the ink to the background. So when you're working with stencils, you want to use light circular motions to apply it. Also want to make sure that your stencil is down pretty well. This one is really easy to use. It's a 12 by 12 size from actually Pear Tree Cut Files. Marie also makes wonderful stencils in 3 different sizes. So that one's from her. And I kind of went around the page alternating the colors because I wanted to make sure I had a pop of all of them all around. Okay, last but not least is the purple. So again, you want to make sure you kind of, the color represents and moves around the page. So you have the pops of it throughout. And again, light hand motion here. I sped it up for you guys, just so you don't have to watch me doing all the stenciling here, but really just move your stencil around. You can use other background stencils. It doesn't have to be this exact one. So with that completed, I started placing my circles back, and I decided I kind of wanted to change up the order of the colors and the sizes. So this is me kind of going back and die cutting the pink in a smaller size because I wanted to change the placement. And then I also wanted to add another circle in teal, just to help balance the large teal circle at the top. So, it happens sometimes. You kind of start with an idea and then you change it up as you go along. So don't be afraid to do that. So with the final placement figured out, I then decided to also add some white acrylic paint. So this is a new product from Shimmer Paints. It's a white acrylic paint base, but it's got just the right consistency and really easy to work with. So I haven't actually tried the sprayer. I've just used it for tapping the paint right directly onto my background. And you can use any, pencil, pen, whatever you have handy to do that. It dries pretty quick, and it's got a nice textured raised effect when it's dry, which I really like because it gives it just a little bit of that interest. So with that nice and dried, you can continue with your layout. I used the Bella Besties plaid and Dottie paper, also in the Gulf color, that coordinates with that same color circle pattern as well. And because the plaid, I wanted to make sure that I saw just the right amount of it on around the border, I used my pencil to mark where I would cut. And this one, with plaid, sometimes you got to be a little bit careful how you make the cuts. Other background or patterns are a little bit easier, right? Usually I do about 1/2 inch border all around, but sometimes you just got to measure depending on what the paper is. So go ahead and trim that off. It's about 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit less. And then you can kind of place it against your background and make sure it looks good. So adhering it to the background, I love the scrapbook.com tear tape, especially in this larger size. I use this frequently to adhere backgrounds or photos to my layouts. I also use it for mini albums, so check it out if you have not used it before. And once you get it down onto your pattern paper, with that particular adhesive, it is very hard to take it off. It is not forgiving, so that is one thing to keep in mind if you're using very strong adhesive. You want to make sure you're placing it right exactly where you want it to be. So pencil marks, if you're able to, you can erase what's left over. But I usually don't worry too much if there's still something peeking through, because most of the time I end up covering it up with an embellishment. So really don't worry too much about that. Okay, and to finish off the background, I added some machine stitching in gold thread, and then you can go ahead and pull up the white edges all around to give it some more dimension. As the next step, go ahead and grab your distress scissors or tool and start distressing all around the pattern paper circles. Okay, now we're back to placing them on our layout. So hopefully you remember your placement. Otherwise, I do suggest just taking a quick photo of the placement before you remove the elements. That way you can always reference it if you need to. In this case, I just went back and played around with it again, moved the circles to make sure I liked what it looked like. And then you can go ahead and adhere it down to your background. For the photo itself, I did use some foam adhesive to adhere that to my background. And then the rest of it is really just laying out the embellishments. Because the layout is outdoorsy, I wanted to bring some of the outdoor elements. And, you don't have to use soccer balls and things like that. You really could just work with the theme. The rest of the video will walk you through really the embellishments. So hopefully you've enjoyed the time with me and watching this layout come together. I really appreciate you, and I hope to see you back here on the channel. Please leave a comment, subscribe, give me a like, just to let me know that you've enjoyed the content, and I'll be back with more.